Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Continuing with Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta Adi Lila chapter 4 verse number 162. Gopi Ganira Premara Rudha Bhavanama Vishuddha Nirmala Prema Kabu Nahi Kama. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The love of the gopis is called Rudha Bhav. It is pure and spotless. It is not at any time lust. Purport. As already explained, the position of the gopis in their loving dealings with Krishna is transcendental. Their emotion is called Rudha Bhav. Although it is apparently like mundane sex, one should not confuse it with mundane sexual love, for it is pure and unadulterated love of Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we can understand from the previous verses and even in this verse that there is a difference between love of the gopis for Krishna and the love that is experienced here in the material world. Gopis' love for Krishna is spiritual. It is transcendental, like Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. Why is it transcendental? Because they are not looking to satisfy themselves. They are looking to give pleasure to Krishna. Whereas in the material world, there is exploitation. We are looking to satisfy our senses. But here, gopis, they only want to give pleasure to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that their emotion is called Rudha Bhav. It is a very advanced emotion, and it is said that it is very acute emotion of the gopis, their love for Krishna. So when, of course, when Srila Prabhupada, when he came to the West, he did not want his disciples to go straight to 10th canto. Try and read about the rasa dance and, all the relationship between him and the gopis, because they may not understand and they may start comparing it to mundane love, right? In material world, what we call love is actually lust. It is not love because it's not pure. It is for personal sense gratification. But the gopis, their interaction with Krishna is not mundane. People may confuse it and think that it is just like our material love. Just like here in the material world, the boy will tell the girl, honey, darling, sweetheart, whatever. That's not the same with gopis and Krishna, because their love is transcendental. And Prabhupada also has explained to us that it is very difficult to understand. Even Krishna says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati. Out of thousands, only one will try for perfection. And out of thousands who have achieved perfection, Krishna says, hardly one knows me in truth. So we can understand it's very difficult to understand Krishna. We need Guru and Krishna's mercy to understand that. But why? Because we are conditioned. We are conditioned here in this material world. We have been conditioned for many lifetimes. But fortunately, we are in Krishna consciousness, where we are trying to purify ourselves so that we become qualified to understand Krishna. Now, Srila Prabhupada says that their love is pure and adulterated. If you see in the purport, he says pure and unadulterated, which means it's not mixed with anything. It's not mixed with jnana, karma, or anything. It's absolutely pure. It's completely pure. I was looking up about this Ruda Bhav, and I came across that in Tantra it is said the Kama Rupa Bhakti of the gopis has become famous simply as prema. And this emotion is what Srila Prabhupada is talking about in the purport also. So, unfortunately, the dealings of gopis with Krishna is, you can say, wrongly considered as lust. You know, sometimes they say, oh, one boy and so many girls. Right? So they think that, oh, this boy is very lusty, you know, he needs so many girls for enjoyment. No, they don't understand. And then when they see that, then they say, if he can do, we can do it too. If he can be in the center with so many girls, we can also be in the center with so many girls. So they start hankering for that. And that is how we know that many times, you know, such people, they become sahajiyas. They try to imitate Krishna. They try to think that I am Krishna, or they dress as a gopi, you know. So all this happens because of lusty desires. So they hanker, you know, that I also want loving affairs like Krishna. This is what they think. And they think that whatever Krishna is dealing with gopis, it's very ordinary. But it's not ordinary at all. Why do they think like that? Because of material contamination. That is why, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we have got the Maha Mantra. If we chant attentively the Maha Mantra, then this material contamination will be gone. Then one will be able to execute pure devotional service. So it's very nicely explained that just like there is a difference between iron and gold, similarly there's a difference between lust and love. Makes sense. So gold, of course, is love, iron is lust. This is what the comparison is given. And here we can see that people, especially in this material world, their desire to satisfy themselves is so strong that somehow they lose their intelligence. They stop using their intelligence. All they want to do is how I can enjoy myself. I want to enjoy. How can I see something nice, eat something nice, hear something nice, touch something nice? It's all about desire to satisfy oneself. But we see these gopis, their only desire was to do everything for Krishna. And that is why they gave up everything. Whenever they would hear the flute of Krishna, they would stop doing whatever they were doing. They would drop everything and they would rush straight to Krishna. I was listening to this lecture where it was said, I think it was a lecture from Mumbai, if I'm not mistaken, Mumbai or Delhi, I'm not sure, just a few days ago. And I'm going to hear that all over again because it was so beautifully described about relationship between Krishna and the gopis. And he was explaining, Prabhu was explaining that when Krishna would play his flute and the gopis would go, their material bodies would stay in the house. Their spiritual bodies would go to meet Krishna. Had you heard that before? I had not heard that before. And I'm like, I need to hear this lecture all over again. So it was such a beautiful realization. I'm sure he had reference from wherever. He didn't give the reference, but this is what he said. And we have heard from previous lectures also that whatever they were doing, whether feeding the child, taking care of the husband, taking care of in-laws, cooking, cleaning, whatever, they would drop everything and they would rush to meet Krishna. So we can see that the gopis, they gave up everything for Krishna, and Krishna praises the gopis' love for him in Srimad Bhagavatam. What does he say? I'm not able to repay the debt for your spotless service. This is what Krishna tells the gopis. Just like we cannot repay the debt to our spiritual master for what he has given us, for the vow he has taken to take us back to God. We cannot repay that debt, but at least we can try. We can try to follow his instructions so that we can please him and be able to become qualified to go back to Godhead. In 163, it says, Premaiva Goparamanam Kama iti agamad pratham iti uddhavadayo apietam vanchanti bhagavat priyaha. Translation: the pure love of the gopis has become celebrated by the name lust. The dear devotees of the Lord, headed by Sri Uddhava, desire to taste that love. Purport: this is a verse from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. We all have heard the pastime of Uddhava going to pacify the gopis, but what happens in return? He becomes self-realized. He learns so much from the gopis, just their simple talk, their simple behavior, whatever simple, whatever the dealings they had, he learned so much from that. And that is why his realizations, you can see it's called Uddhava Gita. Whenever you get time, you can read that. So we can see that Uddhava, he could see the pure love of the gopis, but of course, in the material world, it's labeled as lust, which is not nice at all. That's due to ignorance. Verse number 164, Kama Prema Donha Kara Vibhina Lakshana Lahara Hema Yache Swarupe Vilakshana. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lust and love have different characteristics, just as iron and gold have different natures. Purport: one should try to discriminate between sexual love and pure love, for they belong to different categories with a gulf of difference between them. They are as different from one another as iron is from gold. We already talked about this. So this is a nice comparison of lust and love. It's of course huge. Like supposing the husband comes with jewelry made of iron, the wife will say, are you crazy? What are you bringing for me? Because iron has no value. But yes, if he brings made of gold, then there is appreciation, because there is a huge difference between iron and gold. Similarly, there is a huge difference between lust and love. That is what we love. So without knowledge, one cannot understand. And thanks to Srila Prabhupada, he gave us so many books. He gave us so many translations and his purpose. Like he used to sleep only 2 or 3 hours every day. Just 2 or 3 hours. I remember we went to Vrindavan and I had not seen Prabhupada's quarters upstairs. There's that Prabhupada house. Have you been upstairs?
No, not upstairs.
So this Mataji Shukapriya, she said, have you seen upstairs? I said, no. So both of us, I told her, come, we both went up. As soon as we entered, we felt like there was Prabhupada there, because he was sitting on the rocking chair. Prabhupada was sitting on the rocking chair. I was like, wow. Immediately there was like a shock. It was like a pleasant shock. Like, it felt like, okay, here is Prabhupada and he's rocking on his chairs. It was so beautiful. See, he spent so much time translating. He's come from Vaikuntha, he's come from Goloka Vrindavan just to give us this knowledge. But if there is no knowledge, then we cannot understand what is the difference between lust and love. But here, understanding Gopi's love for Krishna, that of course is beyond our conception. We can only theoretically hear about it and maybe talk about it, but realization, it's a very far-fetched thing. So when people, they do not understand, then they think that Gopi's love for Krishna is mundane, and then they try to imitate it. But if one spends time to read Srila Prabhupada's books scrutinizingly, not just go through it. My spiritual master said I should read 2 hours every day. So let me just quickly go through pages and pages and pages. And then we can say, in our report, right? We are keeping a report, how many hours are we reading, which book are we reading, all that. So if we just, skim through it, then we will not be able to really understand. But we have to hold on, wait for each, when we go through each translation and purport, think about it, contemplate on it, and see, did I really understand? If we did not, then we should take guidance of advanced devotees and try to understand it. Verse number 165. Atmanendriya pritivancha tare bali kama Krishnendriya priti ichha dhare prema nama. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The desire to gratify one's own senses is kama or lust, but the desire to please the senses of Lord Krishna is prema or love. Purport. The revealed scriptures describe pure love as follows. Sarvatha dhvamsa rahitam satyapi dhvamsa karane yad bhava bandhanam yunoho sa prema parikrititaha. If there is ample reason for the dissolution of a conjugal relationship and yet such a dissolution does not take place, such a relationship of intimate love is called pure. The predominated gopis were bound to Krishna in such pure love. For them, there was no question of sexual love based on sense gratification. Their only engagement in life was to see Krishna happy in all respects, regardless of their own personal interests. They dedicated their souls only for the satisfaction of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. There was not the slightest tinge of sexual love between the gopis and Krishna. The author of Sri Caitanya Charitamrta asserts with authority that sexual love is a matter of personal sense enjoyment. All the regulative principles in the Vedas pertaining to desires for popularity, fatherhood, wealth, and so on are different phases of sense gratification. Acts of sense gratification may be performed under the cover of public welfare, nationalism, religion, altruism, ethical codes, biblical codes, health directives, fruitive action, bashfulness, tolerance, personal comfort, liberation from material bondage, progress, family affection, or fear of social ostracism or legal punishment. But all these categories are different subdivisions of one substance, sense gratification. All such good acts are performed basically for one's own sense gratification, for no one can sacrifice his personal interest while discharging these much advertised moral and religious principles. But above all this is a transcendental stage in which one feels himself to be only an eternal servitor of Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead. All acts performed in this sense of servitude are called pure love of God because they are performed for the absolute sense gratification of Sri Krishna. However, any act performed for the purpose of enjoying its fruits or results is an act of sense gratification. Such actions are visible sometimes in gross and sometimes in subtle forms. So you see, what a nice way to explain. Satisfy one's own senses is equal to lust. Satisfy Krishna's senses is equal to love. It's very, very simple. It's not what you call, when something is very difficult, what is it called? It's not rocket science. Yes,
Right.
it's not rocket science at all. It's very, very simple. Personal sense gratification equals to lust. Satisfaction of Krishna is equal to love. Simple as that. But as we can see, it's not easy to understand the pure love gopis for Krishna. Very difficult to understand. I was listening to this lecture where Prabhu was saying that these gopis, they are the sages that were there in during the time of Lord Ramachandra. And these sages, they wanted to enjoy with Lord Ramachandra, and Lord Ramachandra said, no, I am a one woman man, and not in this this time, but next time when I come, I will definitely have this loving relationship with you. So all these sages, they came when, 5,000 years ago as gopis, and Krishna fulfilled their desires. So the gopis, they never thought about sense gratification. They never thought, oh, how am I going to enjoy myself in the company of Krishna? Not at all. They were not thinking in that sense at all. Here in the material world, we are always looking for what's in it for me. Right? Have you heard about that? WIIFM. What's in it for me? Okay, I want to, be friends with you. What am I going to get out of you? If I don't get anything from you, why should I be your friend? Because I'm not getting any benefit, right? Sometimes they say friends with benefits. Friends come with benefits, because we have already thought about it that we are looking for benefits. But here, gopis, they never thought about enjoying themselves, that how they can, enjoy with Krishna. No, they were not interested in satisfying themselves. But here in the material world, those who are not Krishna conscious are only thinking about sense gratification, how to satisfy my own senses. But for the gopis, their only object of love was Krishna only Krishna. They were all the time meditating, like when gopis would meet with Krishna, they would all think how to give pleasure to Krishna. Someone would play nice music, nice mridanga or kartal, or sing beautifully, or make a garland for Krishna, or make some nice foodstuffs too, please. Their only meditation was, how can I give pleasure to Krishna? Why? Because they wanted to see Krishna happy. Now, does Krishna's happiness depend on anyone else or anything else? No. But he gives us an opportunity, like Prabhupada says, Krishna doesn't need us to offer him bhoga. He doesn't need us to do his abhishek and dress him and do his arati. He doesn't need that. But he's giving us an opportunity so that we can engage our senses in devotional service. How beautiful it is, you're listening to Prabhupada lecture, and then you're bathing the deities and you're dressing them. You are purifying your own self just by doing these simple acts of devotional service. So they just wanted to make sure that Krishna was always happy. So they were always engaged in finding new ways to satisfy Krishna. If you remember that pastime, Krishna had a headache. Can God have a headache? But that was his pastime. He wanted to show us what is full surrender. So when he had headache, everyone was worried. Well, how can we cure it? He said, very simple. Get me the dust of devotees' feet. Now, who will give the dust of their feet to put on Krishna's head to remove his headache? Anyone here? Everyone they approached, they said, no, we'll go to hell. If our dust from our feet is put on Krishna's head, we'll go to hell. But then, who were the ones who gave? The gopis. They said, yes, it's okay if we have to go to hell. Ariji, why are you doing that? You'll go to, yeah, we can go to hell. But Krishna's headache should be removed. They wanted to give pleasure and satisfaction to Krishna. That was important. So Srila Prabhupada here in this purport is talking about sense gratification. How in this material world people have a desire to get married. During this last trip to India, so many places I heard, why don't you tell my daughter to get married? Why don't you tell my son to get married? Why? The desire is there. Why? First, I want to get married, then I will have some children, then I will have some bank balance, and then, maybe I will try to get a promotion in my office, and then I'll become famous. All this is personal sense gratification. In the Vedic times, marriage was called Vivaha Yagna because it was performed like a sacrifice, that husband and wife, they're going to help each other advance spiritually. But now what is it? What is marriage? It has to be a destination wedding, or in a five-star hotel with this menu and this dress and this gagra choli and this, whatever. There is no vivaha yagna at all. Um, there is no talk between the boy and girl about their future in spirituality. It's only about how we can advance materially. There is no talk. So here there is a lot of desire to all this, and then in that process people forget what they have come here for, right? Kalir dosha nidhe rajan, eko hi mahan guna, eko asti hi mahan guna. This Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, but there is one mahan guna. What is that? Just by chanting Hare Krishna, we can go back to Godhead. 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Very, very simple. It reminds us what is our constitutional position: to be the servant of Krishna, to give him satisfaction, to do service to him. And when we serve Krishna with the attitude of service, then gradually we can come to the stage of pure devotional service. And in Prabhupada says, in that pure devotional service, there should be no tinge of personal sense gratification. Prabhupada says, even if there is a tinge of material desire, we cannot go back to Godhead. And we can see that Srila Prabhupada, he ends the purport with a very important sentence. He says, sense gratification is visible in gross and subtle forms. Sometimes, one may be engaged in sense gratification and not be aware of it, right? Is so engrossed that is not even aware of it. Externally, it may be visible, but if the mind is engaged, say supposing someone is chanting Hare Krishna, but the mind is engaged in sense gratification. That's a subtle form of sense gratification, right? Thinking, oh, I wish I was here, I wish I was there, I wish I did this, while chanting Hare Krishna. So that's a subtle form of sense gratification. And Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness is the only hope for liberation. Now we have a choice. What do we want to do? Because of our piety, we have become close to the devotees. We have come across Krishna consciousness. So now what do we do from here? Do we just remain in plateau? We just do whatever, we are doing, whatever we are able to do, whatever our body is able to do, whatever our mind is ready to do. Should we do that, or should we take it up more seriously? Take it up more seriously means follow Guru's instructions very, very carefully. And just by following this path of Krishna consciousness, we will be able to purify ourselves and also be able to become qualified to go back to Godhead. If you remember, I had asked this question: should I think about going back to Godhead, or should I just continue doing devotional service? I had asked this question to Chandramauli Swami in one of the classes. And he said, yes, you should have that desire, because we have not reached that stage of pure love, right? We have not reached there. So at least that desire will help us to keep moving forward, somehow or the other, keep continuing on this path of Krishna consciousness. So if somehow or the other we can take it up very seriously, then we'll be able to go beyond materialism. Otherwise, we'll get stuck in material activities. Now, Prabhupada explained to us that it's not that just because we've come to Krishna consciousness, we forget our material duties. No, we still do that, but we have to make sure that we don't get so engrossed in those material duties that we forget our spiritual duties. That is very, very important, because if we forget, Then once, like, the ball starts rolling, then it starts going down, 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 downhill. And before we know, we are unable to even catch it. So it's very, very important that while we are living in this material world, while we are living in the family situation, we need to remain focused in Krishna consciousness and try to progress as much as possible, because time is passing by. We cannot get back all the time that is lost. It's 9:37. We started at 9:38. 38 minutes are gone. Can we go back to 9 o'clock? We cannot go back to 9 o'clock. Even the wealth of the entire creation cannot bring us back to that time which we have. Of course, we used it nicely by hearing Chaitanya Charitamrta. But if somehow or the other we can, think about how we can improve our spiritual lives, that will only benefit us. That will help us to get closer to Krishna. And the first step is to chant attentively. Because of this jet lag, I woke up at 1 in the morning and I'm thinking, what should I do? Maybe I should try and sleep a little more. But after 15 minutes, no sleep, what to do now? Then I thought, I lost 15 minutes already. Might as well get up. If you're not getting sleep, might as well get up. Get up and shower and sit and chant and see, is it attentive chanting, or is it by the way chanting? Am I hearing what I am chanting? Or I have not even realized I finished one round. Right? They have to become very, very serious about at least chanting attentively, because Srila Prabhupada says once we chant attentively, everything else will fall in place. Then we don't have to worry about anything else. Just, he says, 99% of our progress in spirituality depends on attentive chanting. Not just chanting, but attentive chanting. So this is how we will be able to progress. And we can see that how the gopis, their love for Krishna is so pure. Of course, sometimes due to some pastimes, they may act some other way. I remember in Vrindavan, I met Gudakesh Prabhu. I don't know if I told you all, he used to come to our programs in India, in Mumbai, more than 35 years ago or 30 years ago. He would come, beautiful kirtan he would do, beautiful kirtan he would do. That is also kirtan. And beautiful kirtan he would do, and he would give a class in Hindi. So I met him after 30 years. And then, of course, it was his turn to even give class, and I was sitting in his class, and he gave the same story I had heard 30 years ago. Same story. So I met him after the class and I said, Prabhu, still same story? He said, yeah, why change? Same story, just keep repeating, because every time audience is new, right? So he's the one who had told a story about the gopis. And he said, and this was then, decades ago, he said that one time the gopis, they were feeling separation from Krishna. And when they were feeling separation from Krishna, and then when they saw Krishna coming, they fainted, they were so excited, and then they fainted. And then Krishna, to bring them back to consciousness, he kissed them on the cheeks, and then the gopis got up. So there was this one gopi hiding, an older gopi, and she said, oh, I'll get a kiss from Krishna if I faint. So she pretended to faint. So when she pretended to faint, so then all the gopis came back to consciousness with the kiss from Krishna, and here was this one pretending to faint. So Krishna said, oh, there is one more gopi who has fainted. Bring a jhadu for me. This one needs a jhadu to get up. We cannot cheat Krishna, right? So, and this is what Buddha had told us 30 years ago. So I just remembered one of these pastimes. So we get a lot of advantage in association with devotees. When we associate, then we learn. And then not only we learn, we also build that relationship. A lot of kirtan today. So we learn to build that relationship with Krishna because we help each other. Like, it's not that we all can learn everything. It's not possible to learn everything or to know everything or to have all knowledge. It's not possible. But whatever we have, we can share with each other. So we learned a lot about the gopis today, how their love is pure, it's transcendental, and their only desire is to give pleasure to Krishna. So I'm going to end now. If anyone has